Hello everybody, John Hardy with you, helping you do business better. How can I help you today? You know, we all have obstacles and we wonder, how do we overcome them? The big obstacle I wanted to deal with today, and I find this an interesting conversation with my clients, is when I say to them as they lead their businesses and where they're facing challenges and difficulties, that they then wonder when I say the biggest problem is not your staff, not your clients, not your money flow, not your marketing, not your reporting. The biggest obstacle is in you. And they say, oh. And they struggle sometimes to recognize that I need to work on me, to grow my business. Because there's stuff that goes on inside of us that is really quite interesting. And I found this all the way through my coaching, is the conversations people have internally. And this is what I want to speak about and share with you today, about this whole dynamic of self-talk, the language that we say to ourselves over and over again. Today I had to have a crucial conversation, and I last night had lots of conversations going on in my head about all sorts of scenarios. Going to the meeting, I had lots of conversations going on in my head about how the conversation would go. And I had that conversation and it went really well. We came to a conclusion and a solution and a strategy and an understanding. And some of those conversations I had in my head weren't very wholesome, they weren't very positive, they were giving me a hard time about me. I've misread this, I don't understand that, I'm over-assuming this. And there was a real sense for me of being slightly disturbed. So my sleep last night was slightly disturbed because I'm wrestling with the obstacle that is in me. And so here is the challenges that we face. And I did this with one of my clients this week. And it was interesting when she said to me that my own operator that I'm accountable to, my key line manager who runs the whole organization, said, what you're saying to me is what my owner of the organization said to me as well. And I simply said to her, do you understand the point that we're trying to make? We're trying to give you skills in you so you can overcome the obstacles in you that are actually tripping you up and causing you to be dysfunctional and ineffective and not really stepping into the dynamic of leadership that we know you have, that you still haven't quite flicked that switch. So the way I illustrated it to her was my pay the rent, strategic thinking, visionary planning. And I said to her, the challenge that you face is, I want you to be a strategic leader. The leader of the organization wants you to be a strategic leader and a thinker, but what you're doing is you're staying in a pay the rent mode. As long as I do enough in the day, in the week, in the month, then everything will be okay. And yet there is a motivation by the leadership and by her coach to say there is so much more in you to deliver, and you can actually really sit in that leadership strategic dynamic. And she's an aspirational leader that wants to grow and wants to develop, and yet still struggling with this self-conversation and not really grasping what is actually happening on the inside of her. And so this is what we face as leaders and owners and operators and executives, is our own internal conversations. And so we limit our effectiveness by the way we actually don't really diagnose our own self-talk that's going on inside of us. And it happens to us all the time. And this is one of the ongoing conversations I have on a regular basis with my clients. I have a number of them say to me, John, one of the key things you've done for me is help me gain confidence in who I am as a leader, as an owner, as a business operator, and I'm much more at peace sitting in that place, and I have moved to actually own that space, understand that space, and operate in that space. And they find themselves realizing what potential was inside of them is now realized What I then want them to do is to continue to grow, not to plateau again. And so this is what I know I want to help you to do today, and that is, if you can understand that the obstacle is in you, the way you think, the way you feel, the way you respond, the way you react, the way you engage with your limiting factors, and I'm going to give you some very clear, powerful words that I will want you to think about and actually understand, is that me? Is that what's going on for me? It really is great to help you think and understand that the obstacle is in you. And I've seen this amazing thing happen when I help my clients understand that they are really have got to do a fair bit of work on themselves and in themselves to change the way they think, to change this self-talk. And they end up hitting, and I've done this and talked to you about this, the big C, and that is confidence. And when that comes to the surface and becomes part of the very essence of who they are and how they operate, the dynamic of self-talk that goes on in them, and we're going to talk a little bit more detail in what some of those challenges are of the obstacles that go on inside of you. This is the end result for you, is that you will actually grow in confidence and have greater competence about who you are and how you do business, how you lead your team, how you think about your clients, how you do strategic engagements. Is something flips on the inside and you take that shift. When you take that shift, then it's quite amazing what will actually happen in you and for you. So what I'm actually asking you to do as we go through this journey today and have this confidence, this conversation, is understand and own that this is about you and me having the conversation and owning up that there is an obstacle in me, which is me, and I'm going to address those dynamics. So let me touch briefly, and we'll work through this on one of those areas, and that is insecurity. You know, what a huge challenge this is for us as we do business. And as we live life, and as we work through what's going on the inside of us. And that language is all about who I am. And I find this over and over again with leaders, is that they struggle to recognize that I'm fundamentally insecure. And they don't own that space, they don't believe in that space, because we get told we've got to put on the happy face, we've got to put on the positive face, we've got to put on those kind of dynamics to actually make it in this world. But when we recognize the self-talk that goes on inside of us, and some of these other expressions I'm going to share with you, the difference that it makes in the way we understand ourselves, it's like what the Greeks have told us is know thyself. Is really, really powerful to look in the mirror and to look and own the wrinkles, own the aging, own a little bit of extra weight. You know, own the fact that sometimes the muscles don't quite work as well as you thought they did, and you know that they did once, but they're not quite. And these are insecurity dynamics that are going on inside of you about how you think about who I am. And I want us to wrestle with this, understand the dynamics of it, understand some of the other areas I'll talk about, because when we own them and understand them, and actually figure out the strategies by which we can move forward, the dynamic of us actually understanding I am the obstacle, I know what I'm wrestling with, and sometimes on days it's bigger than others, sometimes on days I don't even see them appear, but I know that they are kind of bubbling away on the inside of me, because this is what we are like as human beings on this planet. We are designed with some kind of fail-safe failure mechanisms, because here's the big deal. I want you to remember this. You and I will learn more from our failures, and I want you to learn how to fail forward than we will of our successes, because our successes tend to build our pride, where our failures will build our humility. And if you've ever read Jim Collins' book about Good to Great, they discovered through research one of the most important traits that good to great leaders had, one of them, there was only two, you can look the book up, was humility. And we learn that as we understand and get a grip with who I am as a person and what really is going on in the side of me. And that's the power of this conversation that we're having today, is helping recognize I have obstacles, I'm going to deal with them, and I'm actually going to help myself move past them. So that's our conversation that I want to do today. Stay with me. We're going to have more of that conversation, and I'll delve into inadequacy in a little bit more detail. Thank you so much. And the story unfolds. That's what I love about doing this show with you. Each week we break it up into smaller segments, so you can have a listen, take it in, think about it, listen to some music, and come back to us and wander through the story with us, letting that resonate with you. I find when I'm listening to podcasts, and sometimes I really want to think them through, they've given me a lot of information. What we're trying to do is make it into bite-sized dynamics for you. Hey, I get that, okay? The obstacle is in you. That's my point. And I've learned through communication that if I can give you one point and you really get that, then that's really powerful. So what I want to do is delve a little bit more into this topic of insecurity, one of the obstacles that you and I face. And so here are some of the kind of commentaries that run on the inside of us that give us different messages about our insecurities. I grew up like I was raised by, those parents that had difficulties, my parents. I didn't understand this. This is really, really fascinating. That we grew up eating liver and kidney and brain and tongue and stomach, whatever. I can't remember what that was. Blood puddings and those kind of things. And for us, that was normal. And occasionally we would have lamb chops. Was an occasional special. When I got a bit older and we began to buy food for ourselves as I got married and I realized we were never buying liver and kidney and tongue and spam and blood pudding and those kind of things. And I thought, why don't we do that? And I realized that they were the cheap offcuts that we actually had to buy, because not only was I a child in my family, but there was actually 7 of us. And there was only one income. And that's what was the norm. And I come from Manchester in the north of England. And that was the norm of living. One income, mum stayed at home looking after the kids. Dad had a good job with a company called Ferranti's in England. And, didn't understand what was really going on. And so we can say, well, I'm insecure because my parents were poor. I'm insecure because my parents brought us up on offal, is how we would describe those things. And maybe we might change that word from awful to awful. But, I played sport. I was very smart. I had a good upbringing, a safe environment. I traveled the world with my parents. So I was born in Hong Kong, raised in England, grown up in Australia, traveled in Southeast Asia. Lots of those incredible dynamics. I think I was not poor, but these are the challenges that we think about ourselves and the messaging that we actually put on ourselves about our own insecurities. Because what we do is we actually compare ourselves to our neighbors, our friends, our colleagues. I grew up in a public education. My mate might have grown up in private education. I grew up in a family that had one income. My mate grew up with an income with 2 families. We had 3 boys in one room, 2 girls in the other, mum and dad in the other, so 3-bedroom, one bathroom home. My mate could have brought up in a 6-bedroom, 3-bathroom home. We had 1 car, half a bike. We had to share all those kind of things that we say about ourselves, and we say messages of insecurity because we compare ourselves to others. And yet what they do is they look at us and they think, oh, you were brought up in there were 7 in your family. What a great experience you had. I was a single child. Both of my parents worked. I had a nanny looking after me. I didn't really get to know my parents till I was well into adulthood, and all the different messaging that my mate might be saying about what's going on in his world or her world as they compare with my world. And so what we need to own is, we need to own our own world and look at it with different eyes. So when I see the kind of dynamic of what I experienced, and the fact my parents thought enough to think about their future in England was limited, what could they do for their own future and for the future of their family, and that is to actually bring us out to Australia. And I remember flying on BOAC, British Overseas Air Corporation. I remember going into the cockpit and having photo taken in there as we travelled over from England to Australia. I have great memories of all that journey, and the power of that tells me something really caring and thoughtful that my parents had. Or I could have chosen, why did they take me away from England? I loved what was going on. I could have been a soccer star, etc., etc., etc. And we actually send ourselves the wrong message, and we develop within ourselves our own insecurities. So I grew up, I was raised, I had challenges, the dynamics of how we see our world and what we do. And I remember I know growing up that I was doing well in school, and when I came back to Australia after being in high school in Hong Kong, I chose to have a bad attitude, and the next year I failed school. And that was my own choice of how I dealt with my own insecurities, because all my mates that I'd grown up in high school, they were a year behind me. I'd been put up, could handle that, etc., etc. And I really stuffed up because I had these insecurities inside of me, and all that dynamic that goes on for us and inside of us. And what was happening is I was sending the wrong language into my world in which I lived. And this is what we do to ourselves. We communicate the wrong language to ourselves, and about the world in which we're operating. We compare business with business. We compare staff level with staff level. We compare turnover with turnover. We compare income ability to income ability. We compare car to car, house to house. And we make judgments about what other people are doing, similar age to ourselves, similar styles to ourselves, and we send the wrong messaging, and we create these insecurities inside of us that are detrimental to our effectiveness as business owners, executives, business leaders, influencers, entrepreneurs in the world in which we're living. And yet people are looking for us to be leaders. And I addressed that recently. Remember, leaders are these kind of people. Leaders have influence. You are bringing people with you on an amazing journey as a business owner, business operator, entrepreneur. You're taking people on this amazing journey. They're looking to you. They want you to know that you've recognized the obstacle is in you. You've recognized your own insecurities. It doesn't mean you've got to have the answer to all of them. You recognize what they are. You know that you're working on them. I love to encourage people to have the conversation with themselves, looking in the mirror. You know, having a positive affirmation about themselves, saying good things about themselves, speaking to themselves about their insecurity and say, I no longer need to do that because I've grown, I'm mature. People say these things about me. I have these affirmations that I've experienced. I've trained well, I've studied well, I understand. And so for myself, I am a professional coach. I've spent 17 years at this, done lots of trainings to improve and upskill myself. So when I work with you, I actually bring you added values of all of that work that I've done. So rather than being insecure, I become secure. I have a good conversation about myself. I affirm what I am and can do. And this is what I want you to understand is turn your insecurities and make them your securities. Make them your confidences, make them your strengths. Turn your liabilities into your abilities. Because here's what we'll do when you do that. Your abilities will actually change your attitude, and your attitude will change your altitude. And that's what I'm working on with you today. We'll be back in just a short while with some more on helping dealing with the obstacles in you. remember what I was just finishing off with. When you deal with these attitudes that will create opportunities for actions. So the actions, the attitudes will create the altitude. And sometimes we don't realize that there is this amazing opportunity for us to live in an altitude that we think, oh, that's only for those kinds of people. The obstacle is in you. The insecurities become your securities. The actions create altitude, create abilities and create opportunities for you. And I want you to help you. So, what should we do next? Here is one that we struggle with, and that is fear of people. I remember in a situation where opportunities were kind of happening, and I was looking at what my mates were doing and what I was doing, and I thought I could never do what they are doing because they're better than me, brighter than me, smarter than me, and I reduced myself to a lower common denominator because I had a fear of people. And this is what we do. If people only knew about me, they would. And you know the answer that you would put in there. If my staff knew what I did not know, oh dear. If the clients talk to me and find out, they're going to be shocked. And so we have those commentaries running inside of us when we are interacting with people. I have no problems in picking up the phone, having a conversation with people and interacting with them. Whereas my wife likes to do is for me to introduce her, tell them about my wife, tell my wife about them, and then my wife is really comfortable and really happy and can work with that. And so she's understood what her capabilities are and asks me to help her in that and strengthen her and not expose her to what could be a weakness, what could be a way in which she could not then engage with people. And my wife really does like engaging with people. And so I assist her by doing those things for her and help her. And this is the recognition of the skill sets that we actually have in and around our life. And I think sometimes we put too much power into those phrases that I've had. So, if people only knew about me, they would. And so we give the people greater power over us, saying, I don't know how to do that. And if they found out, I'm going to be exposed as a liar, a cheat, somebody who is false, somebody who's a great pretender. And yet that is not the reality. People's fear that we allow to put on ourselves is just a huge obstacle inside of us. And I know this about people. People have an amazing generosity when we are vulnerable, open, and willing to tell our story, not only about our strengths, successes, etc., but actually, hey, I don't do that really well. I struggle in that area. I'm not sure about that area. People think, hey mate, I know how to do that, or my mate's really good at that. How about I connect you with him or with her or with this organization or with that resource? People are amazingly generous and want to actually bring out the best in us, and yet the messaging on the inside of us is all about, if they knew really what I was like, they would actually not want me in the room. And yet I find this over and over and over again, that people actually not only want you in the room, but when you're vulnerable, open and authentic with who you are, they actually come closer to you than you ever imagined possible, because of the wrong signaling that's going on inside of us, the wrong messaging that we're telling ourselves about people. This is another phraseology. We all the time are thinking that people will judge us harshly when they know the real me. And it's just the wrong messaging that is not the truth about how people will respond or won't respond to who we are and what we're about. And I want you to understand how are you going to deal with your fear of people that you have going on in your world? That phone call that you need to make, that email that you need to send, that interaction that you need to have. And I've done this on many, many occasions, helped many of my clients work with this dynamic, and that is to have that crucial conversation, that conflict conversation, that difficult conversation, and upskilled them so they know how to go about doing that. And the power of doing that is they find great liberty, they find great boldness, and they find the way the person responds is often in a very affirming manner and a growing manner that both people actually benefit and actually end up helping each other understand what's going on in their world. And they get to see the diamond from the perspective of the other person. And this is the wonder of the world in which we live, that we have this diamond of life, and that I see it a certain dynamic and you will see it from a certain perspective. Somebody might see it from above, somebody might see it from below, somebody might see it from left field, somebody might see it from right field, etc. And the whole perspective of the 360-degree world in which we live, and the wonderful, interesting perspectives that people have that will actually lift us, or to actually help each other overcome these fears that we have that are irrational, that are unjustifiable, and that really, when they're tested, they won't hold water, because people are amazing in how they want to help us grow, develop, and resource. You know, we all grew up through education. We all had teachers. I remember my maths teacher in England encouraging us and finding creative ways in which we could learn how to do maths. And I remember him, Scottish man, very big, bold man, made bold statements, was very physical in his presence, but he made the maths experience a great experience, because what he was wanting to do is not let us persuade him that he couldn't teach, but he was wanting to persuade us that we could learn and learn well and succeed in that whole dynamic. I remember that from many, many years ago. I had an outstanding English teacher that helped me learn. And this is what people do. We think it's teachers, but we all have these amazing attributes to help build, encourage, strengthen all of us. And I love the fact that when we are in business, we have our team of people working with us. And they are amazing. They actually have this innate desire inside of them that says, I want to help you succeed. Can you help me so I can actually help you? And so I want to challenge not to have a fear of people, but to have a focus for people and with people. And it is something amazing that when we do things together, we are better together than we are alone. When we isolate ourselves, there's a proverb that says, those who withhold will tend to poverty. You'll become poor. But those who give and give up actually become abound and are generous and grow and develop and outstrip potential, that when you withdraw and you become poor, when you give away, you become rich. And it's amazing to do, wonderful to do. And so your fear of people changes to your focus with people, on people, by people. And it's going to be a great journey of this wonderful dynamic of working with these 7 billion people on planet Earth and enjoying the whole dynamic of what it actually means for us to work with people. The people work with us because we are better together. So don't fear people. Work with them, they will work with you. Grow with them, they will grow you. Challenge them, they will challenge you. So we're going to be back in just a short while to help you and I continue to deal with overcoming these obstacles inside of us so we can do business better. G'day everybody, great to be back with you. We've been dealing today with the obstacle is in you. And we've touched on those challenging dynamics that when you create the right actions, it will create the right opportunities that will give you the right altitude. And that's what I want to do. I want to lift you into the great potential that is inside of you and help you overcome these obstacles and actually understand I recognize them and I'm going to own them and I'm actually going to work forward, move forward on them and for me, because when I grow, I can share that with those around and about me and I will lift those with me. So here's a challenging thought for us. Inadequacy. I have never been. I don't have a degree. Oh no. I don't know about finances. I struggle taking and leading people. I wake up with. We have these messaging going on inside of us about our own inadequacy that we recognize that I'm weak, I'm poor, I can't do. You know, there is a phrase that I like to encourage people is do this. And let me get you to think. I want you to can your can'ts. Let me say that to you again. I want you to can your can't. So the language is I can. And I want you to put those can'ts into your cans because I now can. I can do these things. I can be adequate. I can be competent. I can learn. I often ask my clients, what is the book that you're reading at the moment? My book that I'm reading is by Jim Collins, How the Mighty Fail. Learning principles about the dynamics that go on in business, about what businesses need to recognize that failure can be at our doorstep and we don't even know it's about to hit our businesses. I want to learn that. I want to know that. I want to grow in that because I want to help businesses when I'm doing diagnostics with them, looking at the signals that's going on in their business to help them recognize, failure could be actually at our doorstep. What do we need to do? And Jim Collins argues that 4 out of the 5 principles that they've learned are come back froms. And that really excites me that when we enter into failure, there are opportunities, like I said a little bit early in the show, that we can actually fail forward. And that's what I'm wanting to do, share with you today about understanding these obstacles, recognizing them, recognizing at times you feel inadequate. Let me illustrate it this way. I was sitting in a car park of a large manufacturing business, going in to see the managing director, and sitting at the most outskirt part of the car park, and stop the car, and I'm about to get out of the car, and I say this to myself, what am I doing here? I can take you to the spot if you're ever in Perth, and I can show you where it was. And I simply said to myself, John, you might feel inadequate, but this managing director has invited you into his world. All you have to do is go and knock on the door and ask a question. What is it that you want to deal with today? Let's wrestle with that. So that's exactly what I did. Shook off my inadequacy, got out of the car, went into my appointment, advised the receptionist I was here to meet the managing director, went into my appointment with him, and we got out the whiteboard, and my client and I, we worked on a very particular focus. He said at the end of the session, wow, that has really helped me move me forward and move my business forward. Hey, what a great outcome. Me feeling I'm about to do this and I can't do this. I had to shake that off. I had to can my can'ts. I had to get out of my car, knock on the door, present myself, and then simply ask the question, how can we work on what you want to do today? What is it that you want to actually achieve? And it was just a very powerful milestone memory for me to realize, there are times, John, you are going to feel inadequate. You're going to feel like you don't have the right degree. You don't feel like you understand this dimension of the business. And I say to people, I have worked in enough business to know that it's not a matter of the amount of zeros in the business. It's not a matter of how long or how short you've been in business. It's not a matter of how many staff you've got on with your business. It's a matter of let's diagnose your world. Let's simply ask the question and let's discover together the possibilities of what's going on, and helping my business owners, my clients, break their own inadequacies and confront them and move forward from them. So rather than I don't have a degree, I don't know about, I struggle with, I wake up in panic because these messagings of inadequacy I want them to turn around and say to myself and yourself, yeah, there might be some areas of growth. There might be some areas of lack of insight. There might be some areas that I don't know yet, but I know I can either learn it myself, I can outsource it, I can talk to a colleague. There is ways and means in and around the world in which I live that I know that there is a solution I can find, so I'm not going to be adequate. I'll actually find the resources to not only deal with my inadequacies, but not just be adequate, simply adding that extra little effort to be actually above normal, above adequacy, and deliver an exceptional service. And I find that it's really powerful just to put that extra effort in and watch the difference that it makes in the world of these kinds of conversations that we actually have in our world. So here's another one for us I'm going to flip the switch on that, and that is reluctance. Send anyone else but me. I don't know about you, but there's times when send anyone else but me. And I want you to imagine this. You are the business owner, send me. You are the leader, send me. You are the initiator, send me. You are the inspiration, send me. I have a vision, send me. I have a purpose, send me. I know my values, send me. And the flip of the switch is, I recognize the obstacles in me. I recognize my reluctance, my inadequacies. I recognize my fear and my struggles. But I know that there is something about me that I have innate within me that I've been able to do what I'm doing so far. And here is the power that can really transform. And I find this over and over again, having someone else to engage with, like myself as your coach, and having these conversations, I know that is the power that we bring into the room for you, and it means you get confronted, because I will ask you the questions. I will challenge your perspectives. I will speak to those issues. I will resource you so you know. I've got a number of people doing a leadership profile. I've got some doing a communication profile. I've got another one doing a problem-solving profile, looking at different aspects and dynamics of who they are and what they are about, so because they want to grow and they're not going to stay the same as they are. They're going to move and move forward. They're going to move forward in boldness and in courage and in engagement, because they recognize, yeah, I am who I am. I recognize what I've got, but I know that there is this amazing potential inside of me, and I'm going to let it come out, and I'm going to let it shine. I'm going to let it be seen by all the world. And if stuff comes up that I struggle with, I'm going to own that shape. I'm going to find the resources that I need, and I know that I can actually deal with the obstacles in me, because I know I'm going to be open, I'm going to be authentic, and I'm going to be transparent, because the obstacles are no longer obstacles. The language changes. They are opportunities in me of inadequacy become adequacy. Reluctance to become, I can do these things. Fear of people, I'm going to focus on them and I'm going to grow with them. And those obstacles that we've talked about with you today, turning them around, owning the shape of them, and actually understanding they're no longer obstacles, they're opportunities for me to grow and develop and actually make an amazing, powerful, insightful impact in this world, because this world needs you and I to do those kind of things. Understand those kinds of dynamics, understand those kind of expressions, and knowing that they're real, and knowing that you can actually grow, and they make you a better person because you've learnt to do this. You've learnt to fail forward. It is great working with you, and I'm so happy, and I have this kind of opportunity to be with you once again. Because remember, this is John Hardy from Peak Consultancy, where I help you climb the mountain so you can see the view, so you and I can do business better. Look at the link below, click on it, because that way you'll get the content. Click on the bell, you become my subscriber, and the content will be pushed to you so you get it. And that's really cool, because I want to help you do business better. Thank you so much.